Welcome to Junkyard Haunts, where we turn trash into haunts. Today we're going to be doing something quite different. We're actually going to be upgrading a existing prop. And I had received one of these best costume trophies, so I thought, why not go ahead and make this actually look nice instead of the plastic crap that it is. I thought the best way to upgrade this prop was to actually make the skeleton look like he's breaking out of a tombstone. And so, like a lot of other props, we're going to have to build up that tombstone by using cardboard. Cardboard's the best. You would think this would be different, but for the most part it is actually the same way. You still cut out those squares and you just cut out the sides and tape around it to build that structure, just like you would any other tombstone. The only difference really is this time you have to cut holes, and we're making it on a much smaller scale. I decided to actually model this after my very first tombstone that I made. So I'm going to make that with the large rectangle base and a little round top to make it look just like that original prop. I'm also going to be making these every Monday, so make sure you subscribe, share with your friends, and follow along, and we'll be able to keep making some great props. And then obviously we need to put strength into this, because just cardboard with tape will look bad when you paint it. It won't look like a complete structure, and it also will be flimsy over time. So we're just going to take some paper mache and build that up, and it'll add both strength to it and to make it look like one piece. To make paper mache, you just add some flour and mix in some water. You just put a little bit of flour in and then slowly add a little bit more water and just stir it up until it gets the right consistency that you want. Usually slightly runnier is better. There is no like real measuring utensil. I mean, the internet will say that it's half part flour, half part water, but in my opinion it needs a lot more water than that. So like 1 cup water, 1 cup flour needs a lot more water. I wanted this to make it look like an actual graveyard, so I thought I would build up a little mound in front of the tombstone. And since I didn't have cardboard or I wanted round edges, it's actually a lot easier just to do with paper. So I actually just crumbled it up, a piece of newspaper, and then used the paper mache to wrap around that to stick it down instead of even bothering with the step of tape. The only reason you'd want tape before is just to keep that paper from falling out, but since I already had the paper mache mixture, I was just gonna basically use that as tape, and it works great and turns out just fine like that. So if you have any project where you don't want to waste some tape, go ahead and do that. This trophy is actually holding a head of a skull, and I thought, why not make it a little more gruesome and give the skull the backbone attached to it as well. So for that, I just rolled up a really thin piece of newspaper and then just paper mache'd around it so it would stay in that really thin shape, and glued it onto the bottom of the skull. Now I did forget to add a little plaque here, so we can still have it the best costume award. And so paper mache is paper, so it's easier just to cut it off with a knife, and then I just added in some more cardboard to actually make that plaque. And now I wanted to match it to be more like my original tombstone, that it had the borders around it, so I just, add more cardboard and then add more paper mache around those cardboard borders to get in those little fine details with the paper mache so it just doesn't flatten out. I actually used another piece of cardboard to push it down because my finger couldn't get in between those little creases and corners. And so finding something else to use to help push it down always works good. Now I could have added this before I did the original paper mache process, but sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment you forget, or I just showing you different ways to do stuff when you make props. Sometimes you don't like the result, so you just go in and you just add more, and it turns out great just adding more. So even if you've started a prop and you don't like how it's going, go ahead and make changes to it. And I thought this would be a good way to show that. And then we're going to go ahead and put a base coat on our trophy and actually spray paint the entire thing. We don't want a gold trophy. We're going to make the skeleton more realistic. And after it dries, we're going to go ahead and paint that skeleton back up to be more like a skeleton. So I'm doing a little bit of a dry brush technique so that the blacks will still stay in that creases. To dry brush, you just put a little bit of paint on your dry brush and then rub it off onto something else, like more cardboard. And then you just paint over, and you just try not to put your brush into the cracks. If you don't have very much paint on, it won't go in the cracks already, so you'll still see that black to add more detail. But for this particular thing, I probably had a little bit too much paint on there, so I just brushed a little more loosely than I typically would for an actual dry brushing. Obviously, we need to add color into this prop, and so we're just going to go ahead and just build it up. Just adding paints here and there, matching whatever you want, building up, putting in as many coats as you need until it is the right color that you want. I figured now is a good time to let you know that I'm actually working with another YouTube channel where I'm using his music to play in the background. So I have his link in the description if you want to go and check out his channel and subscribe. And I'll just go ahead and be quiet for a little bit and let you guys listen more to his music. Now this is just a base coat for over almost all of this stuff. And the more details we add to this, the more realistic and better looking a prop will be. And so that's where we're going to go ahead and go through and basically dry brush all of the parts that we've already painted. To dry brush, you usually want to take the color that you use and just add a little bit of white or something to it so it becomes lighter. So this tombstone here, I just add a little bit of gray and a little bit of white. And then I go ahead and do the dry brush technique on there. And you brush over, and you see as you're painting, this just adds so much and looks so much better. And if you like how it's coming out and the dry brushing is good and you want to do more, you can even do one with just white. You can do one with just white. And now we're actually going to corpse our skeleton to turn it into, I guess, kind of a more of a zombie figure. To do this, you just take some plastic and a heat gun of some kind, or a hair dryer would even work, and you just use a little bit just to melt that plastic around it, and it will just shrink. Basically, you're shrink wrapping the trophy, but you're only going to do it in little sections here and there. A little bit on the leg, a little bit around the chest, just wherever you think it might look good for this to be a zombie type thing. When doing this, you don't want to be careful that you keep the heat gun on there too long. Just a little bit of heat will actually shrink this plastic up. But if you spend on it too long or put the heat too high, it will start melting the trophy eventually. So you do not need to do very much on this. And of course we have to paint the now new plastic around it. And mine, I'm just kind of using like a dirty green, green mixed with some black, but poorly, so you get a few colors mixed in there. Mixing paint poorly is something I do often. I like how it creates multiple colors within one quick paintbrush, so you don't have to keep going over and with different colors here and there, and it will make it look more organic as well by doing it all at once. And then I'm actually trying something a little bit different. I'm actually gonna dry brush this, but instead of using a lighter color, because usually that's how you dry brush it, you use a little bit of a lighter color. I'm gonna dry brush it with just a completely different color of red, and it will be darker than normal as well. And I decided to go ahead and make my little mound holding the tombstone actually have grass on it. So you paint the base of it with glue, and then I have some old sawdust painted green to actually make it look more grassy. And then for some final touches on here. I tried earlier on to actually cut into the tombstone to have cracks in it, but it was not turning out with paper mache very well. So I'm actually just drawing in with a black marker some cracks into the tombstone to make his legs look like he's breaking out of it. And the last step, since this was a trophy, I just wanted it to shine and glimmer a little bit. I'm actually putting some spar urethane on it, just that I had laying around. It doesn't have to be any special stuff, just a little bit to actually make this shine and look more like a trophy, because you know, trophies glimmer. I feel like this is kind of the first time where we've taken an actual Halloween thing and tried to soup it up, make it cooler. So tell me in the comments below what you guys think of it. Tell me if you like this idea, and if we should keep doing more things where we soup up actual Halloween props to make them look cooler. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share with all your friends. At the end of these, I like to go over things that I could have done better. The best costume, handwriting it doesn't look great and it's a little low. I think if I would just printed it off onto some paper and made the background like brass colors so it actually looks like metal and nice, and then just glued it on, I think that would have made this look a little nicer. Thank you, thank you. I think everyone knew I was gonna do something like that, but I did actually win this, so